Koumei and the Five Fates brought with it a massive overhaul to companions, looking to equalize them all. The main changes were to the beast companions, giving them either entirely new or significantly buffed abilities. Now that the update has been out for a little bit, let's head into the research lab and test out and see if the Kubrows are better or worse than they were before Koumei and the Five Fates. My name is Totama, and welcome to Terran House. One of the first changes that we need to talk about is the separation of Kubrows from their claws. Prior to this patch, Kubrows did have mods such as Maul and Bite to increase their base damage, while also having elemental mods Flame Gland, Frost Jaw, Venom Teeth, and Shock Collar to give them elemental damage and status chance. The problem with this is trying to fit utility, damage, and durability all in the same 10 mod slots was just not feasible for the Kubrows. That's not even mentioning that the mods that allow the Kubrows and Kavats by extension to even use their abilities such as Charm or Cat's Eye also go on the companion itself. It was just too crowded to fit damage mods. Thankfully, the Kubrows and Kavats and other beasts have been given the ability to mod their claws and damage separate from themselves, allowing them much more flexibility with modding. To further this goal of separating damage and utility, Maul and Bite have been moved onto the claws, as have the elementals, and their new posture mods allow you to have even more flexibility with your Kubrow's claws. The posture mods are a two birds, one stone solution to two problems that the Kubrows have. One, making sure that their claws don't take 19 forma to fully mod out, and two, making sure that you have some sort of control over what your Kubrow or Kavat is doing. The first posture mod is Balanced Posture, and as the default posture that you get from just hatching your first Kubrow, there's nothing really special to talk about. The main benefit of this posture mod is just that it has 5 extra mod capacity that, when placed in the aura slot of your Kubrow's claws, doubles to 10, thus making it so that way it's easier to mod your companion's claws. There's not really a whole lot to talk about here. Next up, we have Assassin Posture, which allows your Kubrow to target Eximus enemies and deal 300% damage to their overguard, really helping shred down that extra defense. Next up, we have the Elusive Posture, which causes your companion to avoid fighting and instead gives it evasion so that way it can focus on using its abilities to help support you in combat. Next up, we have Frenzied Posture, which causes your companion to go and attack as many different targets as it can and gives it increased status duration, making it really good for your companions that you want to spread around status. Next up, we have Persistent Posture, which just causes your Kubrow to target one particular enemy and keep targeting them until they die. Not really too special. Finally, we have Protect Posture, which causes your Kubrow to stay nearby and inflict enemies with puncture procs, reducing their damage. From my own personal testing, I found that Assassin Posture and Frenzied Posture tend to be the two best. When you want a particular target dead, it's almost always the Eximus, otherwise you want them to be spreading around status as much as possible. There's a new family of 4 elemental mods called the Claw mod, which greatly increases your status chance while converting all of your elemental damage into a single element based on the mod chosen. Sepsis Claws gives you toxin damage, while Chilling Claws will give you cold damage, Burning Claws will give you heat damage, and Shocking Claws gives you electric damage. I personally would recommend Burning Claws, as it's the one that's been the most consistent both for damage output and for helping your Kubrow be relevant. These mods all share a unique property of converting all of your elemental damage into the respective element they provide, so even if you were to say take Venom Teeth and Frost Jaw to make viral damage, as soon as you added in Burning Claws, it would convert all of your damage into heat. While this still does give you the benefit of increased status chance, if you wanted to change your physical damage, you'll have to look at the next family of mods, the Conditioning family. The Condition mods all convert your physical damage into one of 3 types, Brute giving you Impact, Disable giving you Puncture, or Precision giving you Slash, while also increasing your melee damage by 385%, giving your Kubrow a much needed bump in raw power. While these new damage mods and upgrades to the Kubrow's base damage are allowing them to be relevant in combat, let's look at the newly added utility mods that are helping them as well. Prosperous, Loyal, and Resourceful Retriever are the new mods that are really helping the Beast Companions stand up and above the rest. The Retriever mod set doubles your loot pickups based on the one you have equipped, with Loyal Retriever doubling all and Resourceful and Prosperous doubling resources or credits respectively, but at a higher chance. While the low chance to activate may seem like a downside, they're still very useful to have around if you're a gambling kind of person. Now we've gotten the general changes out of the way, let's go on ahead and dive into each of the Kubrows individually and see what's changed about them and see if they continue to hold their original ranking or if they've gone up or down in comparison. First, for our revisit, we have the Sunika Kubrow, who has managed to carve out probably the best upgrade that we have seen from all of the Kubrows. She's been completely reworked. Instead of attacking capture targets, now Sunika will target Eximus units and strip them of their overguard. You can combine this with Assault Posture and really just watch the overguard fall. CC-reliant frames like Vavan and Limbo will find the Sunika Kubrow to be their best friend, as it will make those enemies lose their overguard and be once again vulnerable to their deadly CC. Next up is the Sunika's Savagery ability, which causes it to blitz between a certain amount of enemies, applying its claw damage to them and pretty much taking them out. Overall, the Sunika is a very strong companion, and with the ability to use Reinforced Bond with calculated redirection, buffing your primary weapon's fire rate, and a little bit of flexibility in the mod choices that you have, a great companion to keep at your side. A Pure Heat Claw build for maximum damage. Next up, we have the Helminth Charger, and this is the general build that I've been using with them. Momentous Bond and Contagion Bond are great synergy with Trample and Strain Eruption, with Enhanced Vitality providing the bulk that is needed in order for this companion to keep going. The Helminth Charger has a unique trait on its claws, Toxic Injection, which forces it to have 25% toxin damage added at the end. No matter what you do, you will always have this toxin damage, but you can increase its power with your mods. Thanks to the Helminth Kubrow's staggering base 25% status chance, Burning Claws along with 2 status elementals gives us a well over 100%. This of course has great synergy with Cold a Weak's 60% more damage per status afflicting a target, and with only 7.5% crit chance and 2.5 crit multiplier, gaining 240% damage on non-critical strikes is just phenomenal for this Kubrow. We mix that with Bellringer's Forced Impact procs and Magnetic Strike's Forced Magnetic procs whenever an impact status is afflicted, and suddenly we can get well over 4 statuses per attack on this Kubrow, all of which apply to its Trample's Virulence Trail. This mod combination turns the Helminth Charger into a ticking time bomb. Once he gets that first kill, he'll end up nuking the entire area with his massive status spread thanks to Contagion Bond. Next we have the Roxa Kubrow, who unfortunately saw the least changes, seeing absolutely no change to Howl or Protect. Thankfully this Kubrow does have enough shields, so that way we can use Reinforced Bond, but this Kubrow really doesn't have too much going for it otherwise. Looking at this Kubrow's claws, it does sport a nice 104 status chance, but since we're using a lot of mods that have Forced Impact and status procs anyway, it's really not that impressive. Unlike the Helminth with the Virulence Charge ability, the Roxa really doesn't have any way outside of biting to really spread this status around, so it makes it very lackluster. Combine that with the lack of an innate Toxin proc that the Helminth has, the Roxa really just doesn't have the offensive pressure of some of the other breeds. The 2 abilities of the Roxa are Howl and Protect. While Howl has an audible howl, and you can see enemies starting to run away from you when it procs, Protect doesn't really have anything to show that your shields have recharged other than a small glow on your Warframe. Without any real way to see Protect, it makes it really hard to appreciate, and while Howl is a nice defensive tool, you'd rather be offensive. The next Kubrow on our list is the Hross, and being able to make use of both Reinforced Bond and Tenacious Bond means that this Kubrow will provide you plenty of damage buffs. Here we are utilizing Bite and Hunter synergy to bring our crit chance up. While this Kubrow has way below what we would want for status chance, using Protect Posture's Forced Puncture procs, Bellringer's Forced Impact procs, and Magnetic Strike's combo with Bellringer, we can still get plenty of status per attack. The only change seen to stock was an extra 3-second leeway added, so that way if you accidentally get out of enemy range, you're not immediately dropping the stealth. Meanwhile, Hunt saw itself get its claw damage applied while also being a grouping tool, meaning it is way better for assisting you with kills. Next up, we have a blend of Disruption and Loot, the Chessa. The Chessa Kubrow doesn't have enough shields to proc Reinforce Bond, so I've gone on ahead and replaced it with Restorative Bond, but that could really be any defensive mod of choice. Generic defensive mods such as Enhanced Vitality, Calculated Redirection, or Primed Pack Leader would be the ones to use. Next we have the Claws, sporting a beautiful 15% status chance and 15% crit chance. To utilize its mixed status and crit chance, we've gone on ahead and used Mecha Overdrive with Hunter Synergy. With the nice mix of crit and status, we go on ahead and use Bite to increase our crit damage as well. The first ability of the Chessa is Neutralize, causing it to disarm targets. Unfortunately, there's no way to actually show off Retrieve, as there's no way to tell what loot drops come from Retrieve and what are just normal loot drops. Finally, we have the Sahasa Kubrow, and this is the build I would recommend, but personally, I would drop Ferocity and replace it with another mod for a reason we'll get into in a moment. Due to the Sahasa's poor base crit and base status chance, I've decided to go with a Mecha and Hunter Synergy build to prop those up. Thankfully, Hunter Synergy and Mecha Overdrive allow us to get the crit and status chance of this Kubrow up to a meaningful level. This is all in an attempt to get Ferocity to actually be functional, but honestly, it's probably better just to drop that mod altogether and use a different mod entirely. The strength of this Kubrow really is in the utility that it provides and not necessarily its damage supporting capabilities. Here we can see me trying and failing just to get Ferocity to proc in a way that's meaningful. I had this guy take down like 5 or 6 dudes and he keeps getting bunted off, as you can see here. This is because the Sahasa can only actually execute enemies who are in the Mercy kill range, but it doesn't do enough damage to execute them at that range, at least not these armored targets. Thankfully, it can still manage to dig through literally a steel barrel to get you ammo, energy, credits, and other useful loot drops. So where does that leave us with the standing of the Kubrows? Who's now the best and who's now the worst? I want to start this tier list off by saying that all of the Kubrows are great, usable, and they all provide something unique to the table. We are strictly looking at them when compared to each other. I'm grading these Kubrows on their combat support, utility, and just general usefulness, but please feel free to put down in the comments below if you think I'm wrong. While you're down there leaving a comment, you may as well hit the subscribe button and leave a like. It really does help out a lot. With all that said and done, let's get into the tier list, starting with the worst Kubrow of them all, the Rakasa. At the bottom of our list, we have the Roxa. Unfortunately, without any updates to Howl and Protect, it leaves this Kubrow wanting for more. While it does sport a very nice status chance, unfortunately it's simply outclassed combat-wise by the Helminth and the Sunika. Next up, we have the Sahasa Kubrow. Unfortunately, with Ferocity not really being able to take down enemies and Dig's utility really being the only thing it brings to the table, it can be kind of hard for this Kubrow to feel like it competes. All the Sahasa really brings to the table is being an energy generator, and unfortunately with lackluster combat stats, it's simply outclassed combat-wise by every other Kubrow option. Next up, we have the Harass. While the Harass has finally managed to step out of Shade's shadow, unfortunately it has fallen into the shadow of all of the other combat-orientated Kubrows. While Hunt is a phenomenal support and grouping tool, it's not on its own very powerful and simply gets outclassed by other damage options. Next up, we have the Chessa, who has managed to eke its way just because of its balanced stat profile. With 15% crit and 15% status, it means that this Kubrow actually manages to have good damage support, and Neutralize has a very powerful effect. It also can't be understated how valuable it is to have Retrieve with the Retriever mods, just letting you double up on loot. This is a loot-based game after all. Up next, we have the Sunika. It cannot be understated just how valuable being able to shred Overguard of Eximus enemies and then pin them and turn off their abilities is for some Warframes. Warframes such as Limbo, Vauban, and the newest Warframe Koumei rely on their CC for their survival, and having an enemy that has Overguard that protects them from that is a death knell to them. As such, having a companion whose entire job is to seek out those enemies and stop them from knocking you down or ignoring your CC is just too big of a boon to give up for some frames. Not to mention the vast amount of upfront damage the Sunika has compared to its peers. It's just such a strong combat companion, it's hard to beat. Coming in first place, to nobody's surprise, is the Helminth Charger. This Kubrow has it all, bringing in CC, damage, AoE, priming. It's everything that you could want or ask for in a companion. Its unique trait of toxic injection, strain mods, and the fact that it has over 100% status chance with a good mod placement just makes it too good of a companion. Its unique trait and mods just synergize so much better than the other Kubrows have with Contagion Bond and Momentous Bond. It's really hard for this Kubrow to fall behind in terms of damage and usefulness. It can't be undervalued the amount of extra value you get from Trample, increasing this Kubrow's damage, max health, and armor for every enemy hit, while also CCing and spreading around its status. The Helminth Kubrow simply provides way too much more than the others do in terms of damage and utility to really be contested. So what do you all think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave your final thoughts in the comments below as well. As for me, I'm heading back to the Watchtower to prepare for the next video on the Sentinels. Have a good one, Terran House.